The day the woman I loved walked out on me in front of my entire staff, I was holding a mop in my hand. I was the owner of the biggest bank in the city, but in that moment I looked exactly like what they thought I was. Just a cleaner in a cheap uniform getting his heart broken in public. And the insane part is, I was the one who chose to live that lie. My name is Tom King, and this is the story of how I pretended to be a cleaner in my own bank to find out if real love still exists, and how that crazy plan almost cost me the only person who ever saw me as more than a walking bank account. You know how people say money can't buy love, like it's a cute quote you put on a coffee mug? You hear it and nod, but you don't really feel it. I felt it deep. I'd hit that point in my life where everything looked perfect from the outside and completely empty from the inside. Picture this with me for a second. I'm 35, sitting in this glass mansion on a hill floor. To ceiling windows, city lights spread under me like glitter, expensive wine in my hand that I can't even taste. The marble floors echo when I walk, because the house is too big for one person. The suits in my closet cost more than most people's cars. The cars in my garage cost more than most people's houses. And my heart is just quiet. Not peaceful quiet, just empty. The kind of quiet where the sound of your own breathing annoys you. Over the years, I'd gone on all the right dates, you know what I mean. The kind of women people expect a billionaire to be with. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect Instagram feeds. And every time, sooner or later, the conversation would tilt toward my money, my lifestyle, my companies, my net worth. Nobody ever stopped and said, "Tom, what scares you? What keeps you awake at 3 a.m.? What do you actually want when nobody's watching?" It was always, "So what do you drive? Where do you vacation? What's your next big project?" One night, sitting there with the city glowing outside and my life looking like a magazine ad, I heard myself say out loud, "Money can't buy love." It sounded so cliché, I almost rolled my eyes at myself. But it was true, and what scared me more was this thought creeping up behind it. Maybe money doesn't just fail to buy love, maybe it chases it away. Maybe it turns every "I love you" into "I love what you can do for me." That was the night my oldest friend David showed up. We'd grown up together, he knew me before the money, before the suits, before the bank. Now he was my lawyer, but more than that, he was the only one who still talked to me like I was just Tom, not Mr. King. He dropped into one of the leather chairs, loosened his tie, looked around and said, "You know, for a guy with everything you look like, you just lost something you can't replace. What's going on with you, man?" And right there with the city staring at me through the glass, I told him. I told him how tired I was of being the prize, how every date felt like an interview, how I could feel women calculating behind their smiles. I told him I didn't trust it anymore. Any of it, how even genuine kindness felt suspicious when you're the rich guy in the room. He listened quietly, then leaned forward with that look he gets when he's about to say something uncomfortable. "Okay," he said. "So what are you going to do about it? You gonna sit up here in your aquarium and complain? Or are you actually going to change the place where you meet people?" That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. So I said, "I've been thinking about something, and you're going to tell me I've lost my mind." He smirked. "That's my favorite kind of meeting. Go ahead." "I'm opening that new bank downtown," I said. "You know, the big one. Starlight Bank, biggest in the city, state of the art, all that. Everybody's dying to work there, right?" "Right," he said. "Well, I went on, when it opens, I'm not going to show up as the owner. I'm going to show up as a cleaner." He blinked. "A cleaner?" "Yeah," I said, and I could feel something light up in my chest for the first time in months. "I'll change my name. Get a cheap haircut, simple clothes, apply like everyone else, push a mop, scrub toilets. I want to see how people treat me when they think I'm nobody. I want to see who still has manners when there's nothing to gain. And maybe if God hasn't completely given up on me, I'll meet one woman who looks at me and doesn't see dollar signs." Silence for a second. Then he laughed, this kind of shocked, impressed laugh. Tom, that is insane. And honestly, it might be exactly what you need. But if you do this, you can't half-step it. No secret winks. No hints. Nobody can know except me. That's why I need you. I told him you'll do all the public stuff. You handle the press, the legal, the staff briefings. You tell them the owner is out of the country watching from afar. You sign as representative. And I'll be in the back, carrying a mop bucket. He shook his head. My friend, the billionaire cleaner. You know this could blow up in your face in about 10 different ways, right? I know I said, but at least it'll be honest in one way that matters. For once, I'll know exactly who people are because they won't know who I am. So we did it. Opening day of Starlight Bank looked like something straight out of a commercial. The building was all glass and steel, the logo shining the marble floors so polished they were basically mirrors. Staff arrived in their best outfits, managers with their crisp suits, tellers with fresh hair, and bright lipstick analysts clutching laptops and documents like they were carrying their future. Everyone wanted to be there to be part of the biggest bank in the city, and me. I was standing at the back in a cleaner's uniform, cap pulled low. Fingers wrapped around a mop handle. Bleach on my hands, my name tag, reading Jack. That was my new identity. Jack. No last name, no billion attached. David stood at the front, addressing the room like a proper executive. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, welcome to the grand opening of Starlight Bank, the biggest bank in this city. The owner is currently out of the country, but has full confidence that each of you will do your jobs with dedication and professionalism. This bank will be under strict management, and he expects nothing but the best from every single one of you. Applause, smiles, proud looks. People turned to each other, whispering, I heard the owner is crazy rich. I hope he visits one day. Imagine if he noticed me. Meanwhile, the cleaners, me included, stood quietly at the back like moving furniture. No one turned to say, hey, thanks for making this place shine so we can look good in our photos. Not that we expected it, but it was noticeable. One of the tellers, a woman named Karen, adjusted her uniform and glanced back at us with this little smirk. Imagine working as a cleaner in a bank like this, she whispered to her friend. Some people have no ambition. Her words hit harder than they should have. Not because of who I was in secret, but because that sentence is exactly what people think, but don't say out loud so often. A job that feeds your family is suddenly no ambition, because there's a uniform and a mop. The guy next to me, older gray hair peeking out from his cap, nudged me with his elbow. Harold, new here, huh? He muttered. Yeah, I said first day. He rolled his eyes at the tellers. Be careful around these ones. They act like they own the building just because they count other people's money. Watch and learn. I smiled. Thanks for the tip. You ever walk into a place and feel the ranking system before anybody says a word? You can almost see the invisible ladder people have in their heads, who they think is important, and who they think is just background decoration right then and there. I knew I was standing at the bottom of their ladder. Later that morning, I was mopping near the main hall when Karen stormed past and almost bumped into me. Hey, are you blind? She snapped, like I'd just tried to trip her on purpose. Watch where you're going. Sorry I didn't see you, I said, keeping my head down, reminding myself that I chose this, that I was here to learn. You cleaners are all the same, she huffed, lazy and clumsy. This bank deserves better. I bit my tongue. I wanted to say, you know this bank exists because of me, right? But all I did was nod and move the mop aside because right then I wasn't the owner, I was the lesson. At lunch, it was the same story. Cleaners at a tiny table shoved near the corner plastic chairs, cheap utensils. Managers and tellers in the comfortable seats laughing loudly, talking about how proud their families were, posting photos like new job at Starlight Bank, biggest bank in the city, my enemies will weep. It was funny and sad at the same time. One manager walked past us, plate piled high, and said to his colleague, "Unbelievable. They let anyone work here now loud enough for us to hear." Harold just looked down at his plate and sighed. "Welcome to the world of regular people, my brother," he muttered. "This is how they see us." That night, I went to see David. I walked into his small office at the bank in my uniform, cap in hand, smelling like bleach and sweat, and dropped into a chair. He looked at me and laughed. "Ah, my billionaire cleaner. How's the life of the common man?" "I'm tired," I told him. "And it's not the work. It's the way they talk to us. The tellers, some of the managers, they talk to cleaners like we're animals. Like we don't feel embarrassment. Like we don't have families, like we're furniture with legs." So he said, "Seen any good hearts yet?" "Not really," I said. "I thought maybe I'd at least meet some kind, normal person. But so far, it's just pride and fake smiles. If this is what the world looks like from the bottom, no wonder people are angry. I'm starting to think true love, real kindness, all that, it's just a story we tell kids." He laughed. "Relax, man, you've had one day. The world has both good and bad people. Maybe today you met the bad ones. Keep watching. Tomorrow might be different." He was right. Tomorrow was different, but not because the staff suddenly became angels. Tomorrow she walked into the story. Her name was Sarah. Now at the time I didn't know her full story. Later I learned the details, and when I did, a lot of things clicked into place. For now, just know this. She came from a different world than mine, but our loneliness rhymed. She grew up with a widowed father who would rather skip meals than let her go hungry. He sold firewood, fixed old radio parts, did any job he could find just to keep her in school. She was always good with numbers, dreamed of working in a bank one day, not for status, but because to her, a bank meant stability, order, safety. While I was out here building a financial empire, she was just trying to survive with dignity. Then in finance school, a man she trusted did the unthinkable. He forced himself on her and walked away like her tears meant nothing. Weeks later, she held a positive pregnancy test in her hand, standing in a tiny bathroom, feeling the world close in. People told her to drop out, told her she was finished, told her you'll never be an accountant now. Some told her to get rid of it quietly, like her baby was a stain she needed to erase. She looked at her father and said, "I will have my baby, and I will still become an accountant." He said, "You are my daughter, you are strong, and I will stand with you." So she went to class with a big belly, took her exams while people stared and whispered, then gave birth, left her daughter Molly, with a kind neighbor, and went right back, eyes swollen, heart tired, but head held high. Her classmates laughed, said she'd never graduate. She did. No rich uncle, no powerful connection, no soft landing. Just grit. So when she saw that flyer for Starlight Bank hiring an accountant, she didn't just see a job. She saw her father's sacrifices, her baby's future, all swimming in those printed words. The next morning, she put on her cleanest dress, combed Molly's hair, left her little girl with the neighbor, and rushed to the bank under the brutal sun, clutching her CV in a brown envelope. Buses were slow, traffic was a mess, her feet hurt, but she kept going, heart full of hope. By the time she made it through the big glass doors, she was panting, out of breath. "Please," she said to the receptionist, "I came for the accountant job." The receptionist barely looked up. "You're late," she said. "The position was given out 10 minutes ago." 10 minutes. Sarah just froze. What she whispered, like maybe she heard wrong. "Someone else already got it," the woman repeated. "You can leave your CV for future openings." Sarah walked outside, sat down on the steps of the bank I owned, and cried. Not cute tears, not soft movie tears. The ones that come from your stomach, the ones you can't swallow back. "What will I tell Dad?" She kept thinking he was so sure. He told the neighbors, he said, "My daughter is going to work in a big bank." What do I tell him now that I came late and missed it by 10 minutes? And here's where the story could have ended for her, right there on those steps, another broken dream in front of the glass doors of a rich man's building. But life had other plans. Harold walked out and saw her sitting there shaking. "Young lady, are you okay?" he asked. She wiped her face quickly. "I missed the job," she said. "They already gave it to someone else. I don't know how to go home like this." He studied her for a second. "You look like someone who needs a chance, not pity," he told me later. All of a sudden, she stood up, eyes still red, but something hard behind them now. "I can't go home like this," she said, more to herself than to him. "I'll take any job in this bank. I'd rather be a cleaner than go home and see my dad's face drop." Let that sink in for a second. A trained accountant, top of her class, willing to scrub bathrooms in the same building that wouldn't hire her, just so she wouldn't go home empty-handed. If it were you, honestly, would you swallow your pride like that, or would you walk away and call it unfair and be done? Harold blinked. "You want to work as a cleaner?" "Yes," she said. "Please, if you can talk to someone, I'll do anything." He took her back inside, pointed her toward the admin office. She walked up, still shaking, but with her back straight. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said. "I know the accountant position is taken, but I can clean, I can mop, I can do anything. Please just let me work. My father and my daughter depend on me." The admin officer looked at her for a moment, then slid a basic staff form across the desk. "Fill this," she said. Later that day, I was in a back hallway mopping when I saw her again. This time in a cleaner's uniform, scarf tied tight, scrubbing the floor like it owed her money. No complaining, no sulking, just this focused energy. Harold came up beside me. "That new girl," he whispered, "she's an accountant. Missed the job, didn't want to go home empty. Asked to be a cleaner instead. She said she'd rather clean than be jobless. That girl get fire in her body." I watched her for a long second. There was something different about her. I didn't say anything yet, but in my head I thought, "Okay, Tom, pay attention. This might be important." The next day she was on her knees scrubbing the floor near the teller station. Her back hurt, her hands were probably raw, but she kept working. Karen and her crew walked in. Karen, Jessica, Amanda, chewing gum, laughing, holding plastic cups of juice like high school bullies. Amanda squinted. "Is that not the girl who came in for the accountant job the other day?" "I think it's her," Karen said. Jessica raised her voice just to make sure everyone heard. "Hey, look at you," she called out. "You came for an accountant job, and now you're holding a mop and bucket. Ah, life is not fair." They burst into laughter. "Cleaner." Sarah Karen added, dripping sarcasm, "You should have stayed home if you knew you weren't qualified. See, now you wanted to be an accountant and ended up a mop girl. You think we hire just anybody in Starlight Bank?" "She has no ambition," Jessica said. "A whole Starlight Bank, and you think we'll just give anybody a big job? Don't worry, go and clean the toilet." They walked away, swinging their hips like they were on a runway. Sarah didn't say a word. Her eyes were hot, but she didn't cry. And that told me a lot. People who've already gone through real pain don't waste tears on people like that. A few minutes later, Harold and I walked over and sat next to her on a bench. "Are you okay?" I asked. She gave this little smile. "I'm fine. That's nothing. I've seen worse." She told us a piece of her story then. About being raised by a widowed father, about hunger, about being pregnant in school, about classmates who told her she was finished. "If I survived that," she said quietly, "some bank tellers laughing at me won't kill me." Harold nodded. "You're a strong woman. I respect you." And me, I sat there thinking, this woman has more courage in her pinky finger than half the people in suits upstairs. Then the phone call came that almost broke her. We were in the back hallway when her phone rang. She answered, and I could tell by the silence between her words that something was wrong. "Hello?" "Sarah, come quickly," her neighbor said, panic in her voice. "Your daughter is not feeling well. She's burning up. She's been vomiting. You need to take her to the hospital." Sarah went cold. "Oh no," she whispered. "What is it?" I asked. "It's my daughter," she said, already grabbing her bag. "She's sick. I have to take her to the hospital, but I don't have money for the deposit." She ran. I mean, full-on sprinted through the hallway, through the staff area, into the main lobby, straight to the teller line, tears starting to form. Please help me, she said, voice shaking. I work here. I'm a cleaner. My daughter is very sick. I need to take her to the hospital, please. I need an emergency salary advance for the hospital deposit. Karen barely glanced up. An advance, don't be ridiculous. Salary advances are for full-time staff after 6 months. You've been here 2 days. It's against policy. But my daughter is sick, Sarah begged, crying. Now, please, I'll pay it back from my first pay. I just need enough to admit her, Amanda hissed. Go get a loan from a pawn shop. This is a high-class bank, not a charity. Do you think that's fair? Be real. If you were behind that counter, would you hide behind policy, or would you help the woman crying in front of you? Harold and I arrived just in time to hear that last line. What's going on? Harold demanded. Sarah explained in pieces because when you're that scared, the words don't come out smooth. She works here, I said, stepping in. Her child is sick. You can't give her a small advance and sort the rules later. Karen turned to me with that same disgust she'd had earlier. Cleaner Jack don't talk where serious people are talking. What is wrong with you people? I snapped. A child is sick, and you're quoting policy at her like she's trying to rob the bank. This is wickedness. If you feel so strongly, Amanda said, pay for her yourself. Otherwise, keep quiet. This is management stuff. I don't need a finance degree to know this is wrong, I told her. Harold stepped forward, voice shaking with anger. Even if she's a cleaner, does that mean her child should die? Harold, Karen said, rolling her eyes. You've been cleaning your whole life. What have you achieved? You want to teach us about kindness now? Even with my mop, I have more heart than you with your fancy keyboard, he shot back. Sarah just stood there, sobbing, rocking back and forth, slightly stuck between needing help and being treated like trash. That's when another voice cut through the noise. Excuse me, what's going on here? It was Mr. Wilson, operations manager. Quiet guy, didn't get involved in drama, just did his job. He looked at Sarah's face, then at the crowd. She's asking for an advance, sir, Karen said quickly, but she's not eligible. It's against policy. Does she work here? He asked. Yes, sir, Sarah whispered. Your child is sick, he asked her. Yes, sir, she's burning up, and I don't have the deposit. He didn't even hesitate. He walked to a side desk, grabbed a form, signed an emergency override, and handed it to the teller. Authorize this, he said. Give her enough for the hospital deposit. Go, he told Sarah. Take your child to the hospital. We'll deal with the paperwork later. She looked at him like he'd just pulled her out of a burning house. Thank you, sir. Thank you, she cried and ran out with the money. I looked at Mr. Wilson and nodded. In a building full of people who knew the rules, he was one of the few who still knew what a heart was for. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. A couple days later, when Molly was recovering, Sarah came back to work. She was tired, but you could see the relief in her eyes. That afternoon, she found Harold and me sitting behind the building, resting. Good afternoon, my friends, she said, carrying a small bag. Harold squinted at her. See her face like someone hiding something. She laughed softly. No, I brought some food. It's not much, but it's my way of saying thank you for standing with me when my daughter was sick. And for Mr. Wilson, too. She handed us plates of jollof rice and fried plantain. If you know, you know. That's not little snack food. That's I put love into this food. You made this, I asked. Yes, she said, I just wanted to show I appreciate you. We ate, joked, relaxed. When Harold went back inside, she sat with me a little longer. You've been very kind to me, Jack, she said. But tell me something. Why are you a cleaner? You talk like somebody who's seen more than mop and bucket. I couldn't say, because I'm the owner, and I'm undercover, obviously. So I told her the part that was still true. Things haven't been easy, I said. I tried to get jobs, but I had no connection, no one to help. I couldn't sit at home doing nothing, so I took what I could. Cleaning is what came. Are you a graduate? She asked. Yes, I said. She nodded, eyes kind. Then don't stop applying. Don't let where you are right now convince you that this is where you have to stay. Look at me. I'm an accountant wiping floors, but I still believe one day there will be a space for me. This cleaner job, it's temporary. It's not my final address. She put her hand gently on my shoulder. Don't give up, Jack. Promise me you'll keep trying. I can't explain it, but that did something to me. People had been hyping me up my whole life because of my money. She was encouraging me because she thought I was struggling at the bottom. No agenda, no calculation, just real. I promise, I said. Then came that day in the lobby with the old man, and that's where everything really started to flip. An elderly man stood at the counter shaking, waving his bank slips. My money is gone, he cried. You've stolen my money. Karen and Jessica were on duty. Sir, calm down, Karen said, but there was no warmth in it. The numbers are correct. If you have a complaint, file a formal report. I don't understand these numbers, the old man said. It says my account is almost empty, but I just deposited my pension. You are thieves. Jessica rolled her eyes. If you can't read your statement, that's not our problem. Please step aside, you're blocking the line. Sarah heard the commotion, dropped her mop, and walked over. Sir, what's wrong? She asked. This is bank business, Karen snapped. Go back to cleaning. The old man looked at Sarah like he'd been drowning, and a hand had finally reached out. Please, can you help me? He asked, handing her the slips. She took them, looked them over, mind shifting into that accountant mode she'd worked so hard for. In less than a minute, she spotted it. Okay, I see, she said gently. It's all right, sir. You see this charge here? It was posted twice, and this deposit went under the wrong code. It's just a clerical error. She grabbed a napkin, wrote everything down clearly, circled the mistakes, and handed it to Karen. Ma'am, if you check, you'll see transaction 405 was posted twice, and this deposit is miskeyed. The gentleman's balance is wrong. Right then, Mr. Miller, one of the senior managers, walked over. What's happening? He glanced at the napkin, then at Sarah, then at the screen. His face changed. She's right, he said, there's an error. Fix it. He corrected the entries. The right balance popped up on the screen. The old man's shoulders dropped with relief. Tears filled his eyes. Thank you, he said to Sarah. Thank you, young lady. You have the head of an accountant and the heart of someone who cares. People who were watching started clapping. One of the cleaners whistled. Karen stood there, cheeks burning because a mop girl had just done the job she should have done. I watched from a distance, and in that moment, I felt this quiet pride swarm my chest. Not as the bank owner, but as the man who had chosen the right person to pay attention to. Later, the old man's son, a lawyer, came back to the bank, found Sarah, and hugged her. If you weren't here, I don't know what would have happened, he said. They almost gave my father a heart attack. You, the one they call a cleaner, were the only professional in the room. God bless you. By evening, everyone had heard the story. In the manager's lounge, they whispered about the cleaner who solved the dispute. In the teller room, Karen and her friends were acting unbothered, but you could feel the crack in their pride. All this noise over nothing, Amanda said, so she fixed an error. And so what? Does she think she's special? She's just trying to get management to notice her, Jessica added. Watch. Next thing she'll be forming financial genius in uniform. Let me catch her tomorrow, Karen muttered. I'll remind her she's still a cleaner. Meanwhile, Mr. Miller was walking into David's office. There's a girl working here as a cleaner, he said. Her name is Sarah. She's a trained accountant, and yesterday she did what our own tellers didn't. Honestly, she deserves more than a mop. Thank you, David said. I'll look into it. The moment he stepped out, I walked in. Good timing, David said. We need to talk about Sarah. I saw what happened. I told him that girl came here for an accountant job, missed it by 10 minutes, took a cleaner job instead, never complained. Her daughter got sick, the tellers showed their true colors, Mr. Wilson showed his, and she just kept doing the right thing. When that old man was in trouble, she didn't care about titles, she just stepped in. David folded his arms, studying me. You're falling for her. I laughed. I'm noticing her. Observation, admiration, affection, he said. It's a staircase, my friend. You're already on it. I pointed at him. You talk too much. So he said, What do you want to do now? About this whole undercover thing. I looked out the window at the building at the staff moving like ants inside. It's time, I said. Time for what, he asked. Time for them to know who I am, I said. I've seen enough. I've seen the proud, the cruel, the kind. Now I need to step back into my real role. But I'm not just going to walk in and shout it. I want you to send a message. Announce that the owner is back in the country and will be visiting soon. Let's see who changes. And man, did they change. The memo went out. Attention all staff. The owner of Starlight Bank has returned to the country. He will be visiting the bank soon. Please ensure all departments are in perfect condition. At the teller station, chaos. The owner is coming. Karen dropped her cup. When Amanda shrieked, I need to fix my hair. I need new lashes before he arrives, Jessica said, checking herself in her phone camera. He must notice me. I'm buying a new curly wig tonight, Amanda said. He must not think we are local. Suddenly, everyone was professional. No more loud gossip in the lobby. No more mocking customers at the counter. No more rolling eyes at cleaners. At least not when they thought someone important might be watching. Outside in the evening, under this small mango tree near the gate, Harold and I were standing with Sarah, just catching our breath after a long day. Have you heard? I asked them. Heard what Harold said. The bank owner is visiting soon, I said. It's about time, Harold said. At least we can see his face and know who we're working for. Sarah was quiet for a second. Then she said, I just hope he's kind. Why do you say that? I asked. Because some rich people don't care, she said, looking at the building. They build banks and never come inside to see how people are treated. They love the profit, but they don't know the pain. I just hope this one cares and handles this bank with wisdom and love, not just numbers. Harold nodded. She's right. I stood there listening to her talk about me like I was some distant king who might never show up, and instead of feeling offended, I felt challenged. You better be the kind of man she's hoping for, I told myself, or you don't deserve her respect. Right after that, I disappeared. Not because I wanted to scare her, but because I needed a few days to plan the reveal and, if I'm being real, to process my own feelings. I turned my phone off, sat in my mansion, and for the first time in a long time, I thought more about a cleaner's opinion than a board member's. By day 3, back at the bank, Sarah was pacing near the staff lockers. Harold. Have you heard from Jack? She asked. Did he tell you he wouldn't come? No, Harold said, shaking his head, not a word. It's strange. That boy never missed work before. Maybe something is wrong. 3 days is too long, she said. We don't even have his number. I'm worried. And with the owner coming, if someone reports him, they might deduct his pay or fire him. I can't just stand here. That's when Karen walked up, heels clicking loud. Where is that friend of yours, Jack? She demanded. This is the 3rd day he's been absent. The owner can arrive any day now. You better call him. Tell him to return to work tomorrow, or he may lose this job. We'll tell him, ma'am, Sarah said, forcing a smile. When Karen left, Sarah turned to Harold. I think I need to go to management myself before she makes trouble, she said. Go, Harold told her before she writes a 3-page email. Ask for Mr. David on the top floor. He handles staff issues. So she did. She knocked on David's office door. Come in, he called. She stepped in, hands clasped, clearly nervous. Good afternoon, sir, she said. My name is Sarah. I'm one of the cleaners. I came to speak about my colleague Jack. He hasn't come to work for 3 days. We don't have his number. We don't know what happened, but I know he's not the type to disappear. He's a good man. Please, sir, don't deduct his salary. I really believe something is wrong. David just watched her for a moment, taking in the sincerity in her voice. If you know anyone who can check on him, she said softly, please do. Thank you, Sarah, he said. I hear you. I'll look into it. She smiled in relief. Thank you, sir, she said and left. Later that day, he drove to my house and told me everything. How she had walked into his office worried about Jack losing pay, no idea she was talking to the lawyer of the man whose house she'd be living in soon. How she'd called me a good man, not a billionaire, just a man, and that's when I knew. It was time. You already know what happened in the lobby when I walked out of that elevator in a black suit. David behind me, staff holding their breath, eyes wide. You know the part where Harold's mop hit the ground, where Karen whispered Jack is Tom King, where Amanda remembered every insult she'd thrown at me every time she'd told me I smelled like bleach. You know the part where I looked for Sarah, and she walked up, grabbed between anger and heartbreak. Jack, she said. No, not Jack, I said. My real name is Tom King. I own this bank. It would be nice if I could say. She laughed and hugged me and everything was magically fixed. That's not what happened. She stepped back like I'd just betrayed her in the worst way. No, she said, tears welling. Stop. Let me explain, I said. Explain what she shot back, that you lied to me, that you stood with me when my daughter was sick while you were secretly the owner of this whole place, that you ate my food, listened to my dreams, made me trust you. And all this time you were testing people like we were lab rats. I never meant to hurt you, I said. And that part was true. From the bottom of my chest, I only wanted to find one person who could see me beyond the money. With you, I was myself. Every conversation, every joke, every moment, that was real. I don't know who you are now, she said, voice breaking. You say you're Tom, but I only knew Jack. And Jack is gone. She picked up her bag, turned around, and walked out, leaving me in the middle of my own bank, surrounded by people who were terrified of me as the one person whose opinion I cared about most walked away. If it were you, what would you have done in her place? Would you forgive a lie like that even if the heart behind it was sincere? Or would you say, nope, trust is broken, I'm done. I didn't chase her that day. There were 100 eyes on me, a staff to address a mess I had created, and now had to clean up in a different way. So a few hours later, we called everyone to the lobby, and I stood there as the owner for the first time in their eyes, not just the cleaner who mopped around their shoes. You heard what I told them, how I laid out the truth of what I'd seen, who I promoted, why I did it. You know, I made Mr. Wilson Senior VP of Operations, made Mr. Miller head of Internal Audit, pulled Harold off the cleaning staff forever, and put him in charge of staff welfare. You know, I made Sarah the head of customer accounts, even though she wasn't there to hear it. What you might not know is what was happening across town at the exact same time. Sarah was lying on her small mattress, emotionally exhausted, eyes swollen. Molly sat beside her, holding her hand, confused, but quiet. Her father paced the room, worried but giving her space, because some things a father can't fix with words. Then her neighbor burst in with a phone. Sarah, turn on the TV, she said, you're on the news. They turned up the volume, and there I was on the screen, my face and the bank behind me. In a shocking development, the reporter said the owner of Starlight Bank, Billionaire Tom King, was revealed to have been working undercover as a cleaner in his own bank. During his speech to staff today, he promoted several employees, including a young woman named Sarah, previously working as a cleaner, who has now been appointed head of customer accounts. Sarah sat up straight, head of what she breathed. Her father grabbed her shoulders, tears pooling. My daughter, he shouted, laughing and crying at the same time. You did it. You finally did it. I told you your suffering wasn't in vain. She cried again, but this time the tears tasted different. Back at my office, I told David, bring me her file, I need her address. I'm done waiting. He gave it to me. I drove myself. No driver, no big escort. Just a man who had messed up and wanted to try and make things right. I knocked on the door. Her father opened, eyes going wide when he realized who was standing there. Good evening, sir, he said. Good evening, sir, I said back. Because titles don't matter when someone spent years bleeding, so their daughter could stand in the same room as you. He moved aside. Sarah was there, still weak, eyes red, but very much alive. Tom, she whispered. I walked in, crossed the small room in about 3 steps, and before she could step back, I gently lifted her in my arms. She was light, too light. I'm sorry. I told her, voice shaking in a way it hadn't for anything money-related in years. I shouldn't have waited. I shouldn't have hidden for so long. Please let me help you now. Let me take care of you, of Molly, of your father. Not as some billionaire saving a poor family, but as a man trying to fix what he broke. Her father watched tears shining. God, he whispered, is this real? I took them home. My home. Not because they needed my mansion, but because they needed good doctors and rest, and I had that to give. Doctors came, nurses, proper treatment. Molly got a checkup, her grandfather got a real bed, Sarah got quiet and care. In that white room with soft sheets and a view she'd only ever seen in movies, she slowly came back to herself. A few days later, she could sit up in bed again. I sat beside her. Sarah, I said, I can't justify the lie. I can't stand here and pretend it was nothing. I can only tell you why I did it. I wanted to find one person who could love me or at least respect me without knowing I was rich. I hid my name, my title, but not my heart. When I was with you, that was the most honest I'd ever been about who I am inside. She looked at me, then at Molly, playing with a toy in the corner, then at her father, who nodded at her like, "This is your choice, not mine." I won't lie, she said slowly. It hurt. It still hurts when I think about how everything flipped in one day. But I also remember who you were when you were just Jack. The way you sat with me when those tellers mocked me, the way you defended me when I begged for my daughter, the way you ate my little plate of food like it was the best meal you ever had. That wasn't a rich man acting a role, that was you. So yes, I forgive you. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Weeks later, she walked back into the bank, not as a cleaner, but as head of customer accounts. Different clothes, same heart. Staff who once laughed at her now stood when she passed. Some out of respect, some out of guilt. Karen and her crew came to her office one day. "Sarah, please," Karen said, eyes wet. "We're sorry for everything, for how we treated you, for how we treated Mr. King when he was Jack. Please forgive us." She let them stand there in that discomfort for a second, then said quietly, "I forgive you. But don't ever forget this. The next time you see someone in a uniform or in a position you think is beneath, you remember that you almost broke someone's spirit because you thought your title made you better. Don't do it again. To anyone." They nodded, embarrassed, because sometimes the most painful mirror is a simple sentence. About a month later, we held a big event in the hall. Cameras, flowers, staff, media. I stepped up to the mic and said, "Today I want to make the biggest decision of my life, and I want all of you to witness it." I turned, held out my hand to Sarah, and she came up a little nervous, a little shy, a lot powerful. In front of everyone here, I said, "I want to ask you, Sarah, will you marry me?" The room erupted in gasps and whispers. She smiled, eyes full, and said, "Yes, Tom, I will. They say rich guys get whatever they want. That's not true. That yes cost me more honesty and humility than any deal I've ever signed." 2 months later, we got married in a garden full of flowers and music and people who actually cared about us. Molly wore a white dress, ran around calling me Daddy, with this joy that made everything worth it. Sarah walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and I swear every step she took felt like an answer to every night I'd sat in that glass mansion, asking if love still existed. Back at the bank, I promoted her again, this time to head of operations. People asked if it was just because she was my wife. I made sure they also knew about the customer whose account she saved, the staff she defended, the ideas she brought in to actually make the bank kinder and more efficient. You can argue about my methods all day, but you can't argue about her results. One morning, she stood in front of the staff with a microphone, not as the girl with a mop, but as one of the most powerful people in the building. "This bank," she said, "is not just a place where money moves around. It's a place where people come with their fears, their hopes, their last savings. Everyone here, from the cleaner to the manager to the teller, deserves respect. From today, if you're caught treating a colleague or a customer with pride and cruelty, you will not keep your job. We're not just counting money here. We're responsible for people's hearts, too." And I stood beside her proud, because my crazy experiment to find real love had turned into something bigger. A mirror held up to an entire system and a chance to change how we treat the people we think no one sees. So yeah, that's me. The billionaire who pretended to be a cleaner and ended up getting humbled, exposed, and saved all in one story. Now I want to hear from you. Was I wrong to lie about who I was, even if my reason was to find something real? Do you think the end justifies the method, or does the deception cancel out the love that came from it? Do you think Sarah forgave too fast? Or would you have walked away and never looked back if you were in her shoes and beyond my mess? What about you and your world? How do people treat the cleaners at your office, the security guards at your building, the waitress at your favorite spot, the janitor at your kid's school? Do you greet them? Do you even look them in the eye? Or are you another Karen in a better outfit? If it were you, what would you have done at each point in this story? I really want to know. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you agree with, what you completely disagree with, what you would have done differently. If you've ever been on the cleaner side of life working hard while people talked down to you, share that too. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. If this hit you at all, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder not to judge by uniforms, and subscribe for more stories that don't just entertain, but ask you to look at yourself a little deeper. Because money comes and goes, buildings rise and fall, titles change overnight. But the way we treat people when we think nobody important is watching. That's the part of us that never hides, and that's the part the world will remember.